Battle of Kursk. Summer 1943, the largest tank battle in history. What really happened? The Battle of Kursk occupies an unusual position in the history of the Second World War. It is simultaneously one of the most written about engagements of the conflict and one of the most frequently misrepresented. What follows are 10 documented details that complicate the familiar account. Hitler himself admitted the idea, turned his stomach, but launched it anyway. When Guderian, the Inspector General of Armored Troops, challenged Hitler in early 1943 about the wisdom of attacking the Kursk salient, Hitler reportedly admitted that the idea of the offensive made his stomach turn over, a remark documented in the War Fandom Wiki's account of the battle and corroborated by Guderian's own post-war memoir Panzer Leader. Guderian's own position was that the operation was pointless and certain to result in heavy tank casualties. He also stated directly that the Panthers and Elephants were in no way ready for combat. Nevertheless, Operation Citadel was authorized on 15th of April 1943. The original attack was planned for May. The 2-month delay was fatal. History.com confirms that the original start date for Operation Citadel was approximately 3 May 1943. Hitler postponed it, waiting for the delivery of Panther and Tiger tanks that had never been field-tested. The collector's account, drawing on military historian David Glantz, confirms this. The LSU academic analysis states directly, there was no chance of such an outcome once Hitler delayed Operation Citadel. Every week of delay allowed the Soviets to dig more minefields, lay more anti-tank guns, and position more reserves. By July, the defensive system extended approximately 300 kilometers in depth. The Soviets launched their own artillery barrage minutes before the German one. The Soviets had such precise intelligence about the timing of the German assault that General Rokossovsky ordered a preemptive artillery and rocket barrage against Model's 9th Army positions just minutes before the Germans' own guns were to open fire. This is documented in the Wikipedia article on Operation Citadel and confirmed by Warfare History Network's account. Forewarned of the exact time of Model's attack by intelligence operatives, Soviet commanders ordered their artillery to bombard Model's front lines before his own artillery had a chance to open up. The barrage delayed, but did not disrupt the German schedule. June 4, the Panther made its combat debut at Kursk and was a mechanical disaster. The Panther tank, Germany's response to the T-34, made its first large-scale combat appearance at Kursk. The results were deeply embarrassing. Wikipedia's Battle of Kursk article, citing operational records, states, by the morning of 5th of July, the units had lost 16 Panthers due to mechanical breakdown, leaving only 184 available for the launching of the offensive. The collector's account notes the Panthers suffered from mechanical breakdowns early in the operation. The Panzer Fusilier Regiment's advance on the opening day was halted when 36 Panthers were immobilized in a minefield. Some Panthers also caught fire from engine problems without being hit by enemy fire. 5. The Elefant had no machine gun for close defense. Crews tried to fire their MG through the main barrel. Hitler's 89 Elefant heavy tank destroyers were formidable against Soviet armor at long range. Their 80 Eplin L-71 guns were among the most powerful weapons on the battlefield. But they had a fundamental design flaw. They carried no hull machine gun for protection against infantry. Warfare History Network's documented account records that when Soviet close combat anti-tank teams attacked Elephants, some Elefant crews tried to fend off the Soviets by firing their MG-42 machine guns through the main barrel. The National Interests account confirms that despite 89 Elephants, the northern Pincer quickly bogged down after advancing just a few miles. The Soviets knew about Citadel from multiple sources, including British Enigma decrypts. Soviet foreknowledge of Operation Citadel came from several documented channels. Wikipedia's articles on both the Battle of Kursk and Operation Citadel cite the Lucy spy ring, an anti-Nazi espionage operation in Switzerland led by Rudolf Rössler, as transmitting details of German plans to the Red Army. The British passed intelligence from their own code-breaking efforts. Churchill's letter to Stalin in June 1943 included some Kursk intelligence documented in the Mulligan academic paper on Kursk intelligence, published in the Journal of Strategic Studies. Hinsley's official British intelligence history confirmed the British passed some data, while also noting Lucy was a separate, independent channel. The opening day of the battle, 5th of July 1943, was the single deadliest day in aerial warfare. History in terms of aircraft shot down. Wikipedia's Battle of Kursk article makes this claim directly, citing it as a distinguishing record of the battle. The air war above Kursk on 5 July 1943 involved thousands of aircraft on both sides and produced losses on a scale not seen before or since in a single day. During Operation Citadel as a whole, 5 to 8 July, the Luftwaffe flew 27,221 sorties with 193 combat losses, while Soviet units conducted 11,235 sorties with 556 aircraft lost, a ratio of approximately 1.2, 88 in Germany's favor. Despite this tactical air superiority, Germany lacked strategic reserves to sustain it. Prokhorovka was not a Soviet victory, but that does not matter for the strategic outcome. This is the most important historiographical revision of recent decades. The Tank Museum's published research, drawing on archival work by historians including Ben Wheatley and Karl-Heinz, presents the revised figures clearly. The 5th Guards Tank Army lost 359 tanks and assault guns on 12th of July, of which approximately 207 could not be repaired. German records show 2 SS Panzer Corps and 3 Panzer Corps lost approximately 193 vehicles in total, with only about 20 completely written off. This represents an overwhelming tactical German advantage on that day. The Armchair Dragoons Academic Review summarizes Dr. Wheatley's conclusion: the Battle of Prokhorovka was not the largest tank battle on a single day in history. It did not mark the death ride of Germany's panzer forces. Yet, Germany still lost the campaign. Both facts are simultaneously true. Rotmistrov invented the great victory story to avoid being court-martialed for his losses. The myth of Prokhorovka as a decisive Soviet tank victory originated substantially from the need of General Pavel Rotmistrov, commander of the 5th Guards Tank Army, to justify his catastrophic losses to Stalin. The Armchair Dragoons Review cites Robert Citino's work Creating Kursk, General Rotmistrov's portrait, and notes that Rotmistrov's self-serving memoirs and battle-after-action reports skewed history's picture of the battle for decades. Rotmistrov claimed 400 German tanks destroyed. The archival record shows approximately 17 to 20 permanently lost by the 2 SS Panzer Corps across the entire Citadel period, 5 to 16 July, not just 12th July. 10. The SS Panzer Corps sent to Italy would have taken 3 months to arrive, making Hitler's decision militarily absurd. On 13th of July, Hitler summoned Klug and Manstein to his Wolf's Lair and announced Citadel was being cancelled partly to free the SS Panzer Corps for Italy, where the Allies had landed in Sicily on 10th July. The War Fandom Wiki's account, citing operational records, notes the pointed observation that the SS Panzer Corps would have taken 3 months to be transferred to Sicily and thus could not possibly have affected the outcome there, while its contribution to the Kursk operation was vital. No. Wikipedia's Operation Citadel article confirms Hitler was forced to divert troops training in France to meet the Allied threats in the Mediterranean, rather than use them as a strategic reserve for the Eastern Front. The unit sent to Italy arrived after the fighting on Sicily was already concluded. To understand why the Battle of Kursk happened, it is necessary to understand the strategic position of both sides in the spring of 1943, which looked very different depending on which side's headquarters you were sitting in. From the German perspective, the winter of 1942 to 1943 had been catastrophic. The Battle of Stalingrad had ended in February with the surrender of the entire 6th Army, roughly 300,000 men, the most devastating single military defeat in German history. Field Marshal von Manstein had then conducted a brilliant counter-offensive in the Third Battle of Kharkov, stopping the Soviet advance and stabilizing the southern front. As the spring mud, the Rasputitsa, brought operations to a halt, the front lines solidified. The result was a large salient, or bulge, in the Soviet lines centered on the city of Kursk, roughly the size of Northern Ireland, as one account puts it. The salient was an obvious tactical opportunity. If Germany could attack from both the north and south, cutting across the base of the bulge, it could encircle and destroy whatever Soviet forces were inside. Zeitzler, the chief of the Army General Staff, presented this plan to Hitler. It was, as the National Interests Analysis notes, not an imaginative battle. The Germans attacked an obvious target. The problem was that an obvious target gives the enemy time to prepare. And in the months between March and July 1943, that is precisely what the Soviets did. Interesting facts: Kursk salient, 250 kilometers north-south, 160 kilometers east-west, approximately the size of Northern Ireland. Soviet forces committed up to 26% of total Red Army manpower, 46% of its tanks. German forces, 50 divisions including 17 Panzer and Panzer Grenadier divisions. The Soviet defensive system, constructed in the months before the battle, was In the words of one German officer quoted in multiple historical accounts, another Verdun. History.com confirms that civilians helped dig a network of trenches extending at least 1,500 miles. Approximately 1 million anti-personnel and anti-tank mines were laid. The defensive belts extended approximately 300 kilometers in depth, far more than the Germans had encountered in any previous campaign. Anti-tank guns were emplaced in carefully calculated fire zones. Artillery was pre-registered on likely approach routes. Armor was positioned not as a forward line, but as a flexible reserve that could be concentrated wherever the German advance threatened to break through. This system was built with one purpose: to absorb the German armored assault, to bleed the panzer divisions of their fighting strength, and then to launch devastating counteroffensives with fresh reserves that the Germans could not match. Interesting facts. Soviet defensive depth, 300 kilometers in approximately 8 defensive belts. Mines laid, approximately 1,000 anti-personnel and anti-tank mines. Trenches dug with civilian help. At least 200 to 500 miles of network. German forces 470,000 men under strength before the battle began. Deficit carried into Citadel. One of the most consequential facts about the Battle of Kursk is that it was not a surprise. The Soviet High Command knew the German offensive was coming, knew approximately when it would happen, knew which sectors would be struck, and used that knowledge to construct the most sophisticated defensive system in the history of armored warfare. The intelligence came from multiple documented sources. The Lucy spy ring, an anti-Nazi network centered in Switzerland and led by Rudolf Rösler, a German refugee, transmitted detailed information about German operational plans to Moscow. The collector's account, drawing on David Glantz's analysis, confirms that Lucy transmitted many of the details of Operation Citadel to the Red Army. Separately, British intelligence, using their code-breaking capability against German communications, passed relevant information to Stalin. Winston Churchill's letter to Stalin in June 1943 included intelligence on the coming offensive. As documented by Mulligan's academic paper in the Journal of Strategic Studies, Zhukov. By this point, the Deputy Supreme Commander submitted a memorandum to Stalin on 8th of April 1943 that predicted with remarkable accuracy the timing and direction of the German assault. His assessment, as the ancient war history account notes, proved chillingly accurate. German plans recovered after the war showed nearly identical operational designs. The practical consequence was profound. Rather than launching a pre-emptive offensive, which Stalin had initially considered, the Soviets chose to absorb the German blow in prepared defenses and then counterattack with fresh reserves. It was a strategically sophisticated decision that required considerable confidence in the intelligence picture and considerable willingness to accept what would inevitably be heavy initial losses. Interesting facts. Zhukov's 8 April 1943 memorandum predicted German attack direction with near-perfect accuracy. Intelligence sources, Lucy Ring, Switzerland. British Enigma decrypts passed by Churchill, partisan networks. The Northern Pincer models 9th Army in the north. The 9th Army under General Walter Model launched its assault on 5th of July across the face of the Central Front. commanded by Rokossovsky, the Soviets' preemptive artillery barrage. They're fired in the pre-dawn hours based on precise intelligence about the timing of the German attack. Did not stop the German advance, but demonstrated immediately that the element of surprise was entirely absent. The Ninth Army encountered the Soviet defensive system exactly as the Soviets had designed it. Tiger tanks and Elefant tank destroyers cleared paths through the outer defenses, but behind each line lay another. The 89 Elephants, the Porsche-designed version of the Tiger, that the army had initially rejected, but which was pressed into service for Citadel, proved effective against Soviet armor at long range, but were helpless against infantry in close terrain. World History Encyclopedia records that Model had quickly lost most of his Panther and Tiger tanks and reported to Klug on 9 July that reaching Kursk itself was now impossible. Just 4 days into the offensive, in 6 days of sustained fighting, the 9th Army penetrated approximately 9 kilometers into Soviet defensive positions, a fraction of the distance required to reach Kursk, let alone link up with the southern Pincer. The southern Pincer, Hoth's 4th Panzer Army, the southern assault under General Hoth made greater progress. The Decrypts SS Panzerkorps, Leibstandarte das Reich and Totenkopf, drove northwest from Belgorod. Hoth's forces advanced approximately 30 kilometers in the first week, fighting through Soviet defensive belts that were designed to slow rather than stop the advance. The U.S. Army's fought. A Benning analysis of the operation notes that the SS Panzer Corps had led the Germans to victory at Kharkov following the disaster at Stalingrad and brought veteran formations to the fight. However, the advance came at a cost. Soviet anti-tank guns destroyed German armor in carefully prepared ambushes. Minefields immobilized vehicles. The Grossdeutschland Division's attack on the first day, supported by Panthers, saw 36 Panthers immobilized in a minefield on the first morning. By 9th of July, heavy Soviet resistance on the Oboyan Road forced Hoth to redirect the SS Panzer Corps northeast toward the town of Prokhorovka. And rather than directly toward Kursk, this redirection is documented in the Wikipedia Prokhorovka article, citing Glantz and House as a tactically flawed late improvisation to the original German plan. The debate about whether this is accurate remains open among historians, but the pivot toward Prokhorovka was real. Interesting facts. 9th Army maximum penetration in north, approximately 9 kilometers in first 6 days. Model to Klug, 9th July, reaching Kursk now impossible, 4 days into the offensive. Panthers immobilized on first morning, 36 in minefields, plus 16 due to breakdown before attack. SS Panzer Corps advance in south, approximately 30 kilometers by 11 July. The Battle of Prokhorovka, fought on 12th of July 1943, has been called the largest tank battle in history, a decisive Soviet victory, and the death ride of Germany's panzer forces. The archival evidence, as it has become available, tells a substantially different story, though one that does not, as we will explain, diminish the significance of the overall Soviet victory. What the archives show, revised loss figures and traditional Soviet and Western account of Prokhorovka described approximately 400 German tanks destroyed in a single day, and the Dessau SS Panzer Corps as effectively crippled by the engagement. These figures originated largely from Rotmistrov's own after-action reports and post-war memoirs. As the armchair dragoons review documents, citing Robert Citino's academic analysis, Rotmistrov needed to justify catastrophic Soviet losses to Stalin, and his self-serving memoirs and battle-after-action reports skewed history's picture of the battle for decades. The Tank Museum's published research, drawing on work by German military historian Karl-Heinz and King's College London researcher Dr. Ben Wheatley, presents what the documents actually show. The article describes two possible scopes for the battle. Using the narrowest definition, only the main combatants on their principal front. Approximately 9-10 vehicles were involved, 294. German and 6 and 16 Soviet, expanding to all neighboring units, gives 429 German and 870 Soviet, for a total of approximately 1,299 vehicles. On losses, Soviet records indicate that the 5th Guards Tank Army lost 359 tanks and assault guns on 12th of July, of which 207 could not be repaired. German records for 2 SS Panzer Corps and the 3 Panzer Corps combined show approximately 193 damaged or destroyed, with only about 20 completely written off. Dr. Wheatley's analysis, published in the peer-reviewed Journal of Intelligence History in 2021, went further. Using Luftwaffe aerial reconnaissance, photographs of the battlefield taken on 14 and 16th of July, while the area was still in German hands and the vehicles had not yet been moved, he concluded that the entire 5th Guards Tank Army lost around 235 fighting vehicles written off. German tank losses were, in Wheatley's reconstruction, approximately 5, 4 Panzer Verfus, and 1 tank later declared unrepairable. The Wikipedia Prokhorovka article, citing multiple scholars, records that archival files of the Tsekunu's SS Panzer Corps and 4th Panzer Army show that the Tsekunu's SS Panzer Corps permanently lost 17 tanks and assault guns from 12 to 23, July inclusive, representing the maximum possible permanent loss for the Corps during the entire Prokhorovka engagement period. The divergence between these figures ranging from the Soviet wartime claim of 400 plus German tanks destroyed to Wheatley's reconstruction of approximately 5 reflects both the fog of combat and the deliberate Soviet misrepresentation. The scholarly consensus, as the past magazine's review of the historiography notes, currently places German permanent losses at Prokhorovka somewhere between 17, the Corps total for the period, and 80, Zamulin's more generous estimate, against Soviet losses of between 200 and 400. The tactical conclusion is clear. On 12th of July 1943, near Prokhorovka, the German armored force inflicted far heavier losses than it suffered. Why Prokhorovka still matters strategically, and yet Germany lost the battle. Understanding this requires separating two distinct questions. The first is tactical. Who won on 12th of July at Prokhorovka? The evidence points to Germany. The second is operational and strategic. Did the German advance achieve its objectives? No. Operation Citadel required a breakthrough. a penetration of the Soviet defensive system deep enough to encircle the forces inside the salient. That breakthrough never came. The 5th Guards Tank Army, despite its severe losses, succeeded in preventing the TUI SS Panzer Corps from capturing Prokhorovka and breaking through the 3rd Soviet defensive belt, the last heavily fortified one. Having failed to break through, Germany had no path to its operational objective, regardless of the kill ratio it had achieved. The Armchair Dragoons Review summarizes this precisely. Despite the puncturing of the myth on the Battle of Prokhorovka, it mattered little to the larger picture of the Citadel campaign. Interesting facts: Prokhorovka, narrowest scope. 294 German versus 616 Soviet vehicles. Expanded, 429 German versus 870 Soviet. 5th Guards, Tank Army losses, 12th of July, 359 total damaged tons destroyed, 207 written off, Soviet records. 2 SS Panzer, port losses, 12/23 July, 17 tanks, assault guns permanently lost, German archival files. Wheatley photo analysis, 235 Soviet AFVs written off, the 5 German tanks written off on the direct battlefield. Zamulin, Russian archival, more conservative, up to 80 German tanks lost versus 400 Soviet. Germany's defeat at Kursk was not primarily a product of the Battle of Prokhorovka. It was the product of a strategic situation that had been deteriorating since February 1943, compounded by a series of decisions made before and during the campaign. The delay was fatal. The 2-month postponement from May to July gave the Soviets time to build a defensive system of unprecedented depth. Whatever chance Citadel had of achieving surprise, and by March, Zhukov's intelligence picture already made that chance slim, was eliminated entirely. Every tank that Germany waited for gave the Soviets time to lay more mines, position more anti-tank guns, and train more soldiers in the exact defensive tactics needed to slow an armored advance. The northern pincer collapsed first. Model's 9th Army never threatened to reach Kursk. After 9 kilometers in 6 days, against a defensive system designed to extend 300 kilometers, Model told Klug that the advance was impossible. The LSU academic analysis notes that there was no chance of such an outcome once Hitler delayed Operation Citadel. The northern pincer, which was supposed to drive south and meet Hoth's forces north of Kursk, had effectively failed before Prokhorovka was fought. Operation Kutuzov outflanked the entire campaign. On 12th of July, the same day as the Prokhorovka engagement, the Soviet Western and Bryansk fronts launched Operation Kutuzov against the Oral Salient to the north of Kursk. This directly threatened the rear of Model's 9th Army and the flanks of German forces defending the Oral Bulge. It was precisely the kind of counteroffensive the Soviets had planned to launch once the German attack had been absorbed. German commanders, who had been warned such an attack was possible, were forced to begin withdrawing forces from Citadel to meet it. Sicily provided the political pretext. On 10th of July, Allied forces landed in Sicily. On 13th of July, Hitler summoned Klug and Manstein to his Wolf's Lair. He announced the cancellation of Citadel, citing the need to send forces to Italy. The War Fandom. Wiki's documented account notes the precise military absurdity. The SS Panzer Corps would have taken 3 months to be transferred to Sicily, and thus could not possibly have affected the outcome there. The units that were sent arrived after the fighting on Sicily had concluded. The real function of Sicily was to provide Hitler with a politically defensible reason to stop a battle he had already concluded could not be won. Production ratios made the losses irreplaceable. The National Interests Analysis, citing Glantz and House, notes that Germany lost approximately 323 tanks permanently destroyed at Kursk, roughly 10% of the tanks committed, while the Soviets lost approximately 1 to 600, a 5.1 ratio in Germany's favor. And yet, the Normandy 1944 info account notes the Soviets were producing approximately 2,000 T-34s per month at this point, against Germany's approximately 100 tanks per month, all types. Germany's losses, however light they were in absolute terms, were replacing at a rate 5 to 10 times slower than the Soviet side. The Soviets rebuilt the mauled 5th Guards tank army in weeks. Germany could not replace its losses at equivalent speed. Interesting facts. Operation Kutuzov launches 12th of July 1943, the same day as Prokhorovka. Hitler cancels Citadel. The 13 July conference. Withdrawal of SS Panzer Corps ordered 17 July. German permanent tank losses at Kursk, Glantz and House, 323. Soviet Desul 600, ratio 1.5. Soviet T-34 production, 2,000 month. German tank production, all types, 100 month. What followed the cancellation of Citadel was equally decisive. Operation Kutuzov eliminated the Orel salient by August. Operation Rumyantsev, the Soviet southern counter-offensive launched on 3rd August, drove toward Belgorod and Kharkov. Belgorod fell on 5th of August. Kharkov was liberated on 23rd August. By mid-September 1943, the German army in the east had retreated approximately 150 miles along a front 650 miles wide. PericlesPress.net's account, citing German and Soviet records, notes that irreplaceable German losses from July through October 1943, killed, missing, and 1/3 of the wounded, totaled 350,000 men, higher than at Stalingrad. The Germans were driven back to the Dnieper River, which they had hoped to hold as a defensive line, only to find that Soviet offensive capacity continued to grow rather than diminish. Interesting facts: German retreat by mid-September, 150 miles along 650-mile front. German irreplaceable losses, Jules Oct, 1943, 350,000, higher than Stalingrad. Belgorod liberated, favored August. Kharkov, 23 August 1943. The German commanders who fought at Kursk were, by and large, remarkably consistent in their assessment of what the battle meant, even as they disagreed sharply about who was to blame. With the failure of our supreme effort, the strategic initiative passed to the Russians. Kursk had been a complete and most regrettable failure. General Friedrich Wilhelm von Mellenthin, German IV Corps. When Citadel was called off, The initiative in the Eastern Theater of War finally passed to the Russians. Indeed, as Field Marshal Erich von Manstein, Army Group South. By the failure of Citadel, we suffered a decisive defeat. General Heinz Guderian, Inspector General of Armored Troops Manstein's post-war critique of Hitler's decision to cancel Citadel, arguing that he was on the verge of victory and needed only a few more days, is noted by multiple historians, but treated with considerable skepticism. The Wikipedia Battle of Kursk article notes that the veracity of Manstein's claims of a near victory is debatable, as the quantity of Soviet reserves was far greater than he realized. These reserves were used to re-equip the 5th Guards Tank Army, which launched Operation Rumyantsev within weeks. The result, as Wikipedia notes, was a battle of attrition Manstein's forces were ill-prepared for, and which they had little chance of winning. The LSU academic thesis on Kursk arrives at a careful conclusion about what winning at Kursk could have meant. Most historians acknowledge Kursk as the swan song of German armored warfare. There are 3 reasons for this shared notion. The first is that Citadel was the last time the Germans held the strategic initiative on the Eastern Front. Secondly, Soviet diplomats no longer demanded a second front from their Anglo-American allies with the same vehemence as they had prior to the Battle of Kursk. Finally, the German panzer divisions never regained the relative or absolute strength they had enjoyed before the Battle of Kursk. Interesting facts: Manstein's near-victory claim, widely disputed by modern historians given undisclosed Soviet reserve depth. The Battle of Kursk decided the Eastern Front, not because of a single engagement, however large, but because it consumed the German army's capacity for strategic offensive action at a moment when that capacity was already irreplaceable. The myths that grew around the battle, particularly around Prokhorovka, served specific institutional purposes. For the Soviet side, they transformed a costly tactical defeat into a moral triumph. For German memoir writers, they shifted blame from the structural impossibility of the undertaking to Hitler's interference. The truth that archival research has assembled over the past 3 decades is in some ways more interesting than either mythology. Germany inflicted proportionally heavier losses at virtually every stage of the battle, and still lost the campaign because the strategic fundamentals, production, reserves, intelligence, defensive depth and time, were all against it. The question Kursk answered was not who fights better. The answer to that question at the tactical level remained contested throughout the war. The question Kursk answered was who can sustain the fight? And to that question, the summer of 1943 gave a clear and irreversible answer. Next in the series, the Yamato and the Iowa, battleships of the Pacific, and the end of the era of the dreadnought. Thank you for watching.